inside tonight.
We started our journey from the Turkish-Iranian border at night. A nearly 600-mile trip made longer by checkpoints and bad roads. As day broke, we traveled past vast countryside, arid, rocky, and seemingly endless.
We've already been driving for 10 hours and have another 4 hours ahead of us. The reason we have to drive is because even though there is a ceasefire in place, Iran's airspace remains closed.
But the war has triggered chronic fuel shortages. We saw long lines at gas stations as people waited hours to fill their tanks. When we reached Tehran, we found the city slowly coming back to life. After 12 days of near constant Israeli airstrikes. Last week, President Trump urged the entire city, roughly the same population of New York City, to evacuate. Most remain, and with the ceasefire appearing to hold, some have started to venture out. At Firdos Park, a historic meeting spot for Iranian thinkers and writers, a few of the cafes and restaurants had reopened, such as Mohammad Razik.
Do you believe the ceasefire will hold?
I hope it's gonna be continued. You know, war is not good. My people don't live.
Still, life in Tehran remains far from normal.
This metropolis is home to over 9 million people, and it's the seat of power of the supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who still looms large.
Including at these near by hardline supporters. But Khamenei has continued to remain out of sight. And until he addresses the nation, the Iranians we've spoken to tell us they feel they don't know what might happen next.
Imtiaz, how have the people you've spoken to reflected on the U.S. getting involved in this war?
Well, earlier today, we spoke to a woman who didn't want to give us her name, and she told us that she frankly didn't trust any politician, Iranian or American. But she said that she wanted to, in her words, have a frank conversation with President Trump, while acknowledging speaking out in Iran can often have serious repercussions.
Imtiaz, I'm wondering what your observations are of the city, how it looks to you today, especially compared to your visits there in the past.
Well, the last time I was here in Tehran was around 5 years ago, and the difference couldn't be more stark. Despite being globally isolated and under heavy sanctions, this is a very cosmopolitan and vibrant city. But most businesses remain shuttered, and the sense of nervousness is palpable. Now, as for destruction, we need government permission to visit areas that have been damaged in those Israeli strikes, something we have yet to be given.
Imtiaz Tayyab in Tehran tonight. Thanks so much.
CBS News has learned that some FBI agents are being redirected back to counterterrorism after being switched to the president's immigration crackdown.
Scott McFarland reports this is because of potential threats from Iran, and it comes after the administration had let go many of the government's counterterrorism experts.
The nation's top law enforcement officer warned today of the growing threat of a strike inside the U.S. from Iran's.
Iran, of course, is a threat. They have been a threat, and they always will be a threat to our country.
But CBS News has learned agents at the FBI and the Department of Justice have warned supervisors they've been pulled away from counterterrorism to focus on immigration enforcement. And there's been a purge of several top counterterror officials and dozens of experienced prosecutors in the Department of Justice in the opening months of President Trump's term.
You weren't the only person who left the Department of Justice this year.
No, I was one of dozens, probably hundreds.
Former National Security Division Attorney Brendan Ballou, who joined the agency in 2016, quit in January and says many of those fired were dismissed out of retribution for handling January 6 cases.
When you lose the institutional memory from that, you're losing the experts that actually know how to respond to international crises.
CBS News has also learned FBI leadership directed an intensified focus of resources on counterterrorism, but at the same time plans to cut more than 300 FBI agent positions and dozens more in the department's National Security Division. This comes amid widespread departures at another key agency, the Department of Homeland Security, where 22-year-old Thomas Fugate, 1 year out of college, was hired to lead a key terror prevention program. CBS News contributor Sam Vinograd is a former assistant secretary for counterterrorism.
The Department of Homeland Security recently let go a significant amount of actual personnel in that office. So separate apart from who's running it, you just don't have enough people physically working in that office right now, working in communities.
The FBI and the U.S. Attorney General have defended upcoming staffing cuts, saying they plan to do more with less and are trying to thin out a bureaucracy here in Washington by shipping more of their agents into U.S. communities. John and Maurice.
Scott McFarland, thank you.
Now, more of the top stories from around the world in tonight's evening news roundup. Flames were seen shooting from an engine of an American Airlines jet today. You can spot the engine fired towards the left of your screen. It had just taken off from Las Vegas bound for Charlotte, but was forced to turn back. The plane did land safely.
A mayoral campaign focused on affordability, promising rent freezes and free public buses, won New York City's Democratic primary. Zohran Mamdani, a 33-year-old self-described Democratic socialist, defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo in a race mirroring the party's national debate